why are Arab countries so quiet about Palestine? Think about it. We've all seen the devastation in Gaza. You'd expect outrage, protests, governments taking bold action. But instead we get silence, a few statements, some aid, but nothing close to the uproar many expected. This isn't just about government tweets. The streets themselves are quiet, and that's new. For decades, Palestine united the Arab world. Now that unity is fading. So, what changed? Is it fear, apathy, or something deeper? Today we're pulling back the curtain on this silence. The answer is complex. Politics, economics, identity, and outside pressure all play a role. Let's break down the 4 key reasons behind the Arab world's muted response. To understand today's silence, rewind to the era of Pan-Arabism. In the mid-20th century, a powerful sense of shared destiny swept across the Arab world. Leaders like Gamal Abdel Nasser inspired millions with the dream of a united Arab nation, transcending borders and differences. The idea was simple but electrifying. What happened to one Arab happened to all. Back then, Palestine was the cause that united everyone. Songs, poetry, protests, all centered on solidarity. Artists, intellectuals, and ordinary people poured their hearts into the struggle, believing that their voices could make a difference. The streets echoed with chants for freedom, and the Palestinian flag was a symbol of hope and resistance. But the Arab Spring changed everything. Instead of unity, it fractured the region. What began as a wave of hope for democracy and reform quickly spiraled into chaos and uncertainty. The uprisings exposed deep divisions, sectarian, political, and economic, that had long simmered beneath the surface. Suddenly, people were focused on their own crises: civil wars, coups, economic collapse. The dream of collective action faded as survival became the priority. In cities once filled with protesters waving Palestinian flags, now there were barricades, food shortages, and families fleeing violence. The dream of a united Arab identity gave way to local nationalism. Egyptian first, Saudi first. National flags replaced the symbols of pan-Arab unity. People began to look inward, seeking stability and pride in their own countries rather than in a shared Arab cause. Governments encouraged this shift, promoting national pride over pan-Arab solidarity. State media celebrated national achievements, and official rhetoric focused on building strong, independent nations. The message was clear: loyalty to the homeland came before all else. Why? Because a population focused on its own problems is less likely to challenge foreign policy. When people are preoccupied with unemployment, inflation, or security, they have little energy left to mobilize for distant causes. Governments found it easier to manage dissent when attention was turned inward. The Palestinian cause, once a rallying cry, became a tool for regimes, used to distract from domestic issues. Leaders would invoke Palestine in speeches, organize symbolic rallies, or send aid, but these gestures often rang hollow. The public began to see through the theatrics. Over time, people grew cynical. They saw the cause as political theater, not genuine solidarity. Many felt their leaders were using Palestine to score points or deflect criticism rather than out of true commitment to justice. The result? Fatigue and disillusionment. Daily survival took priority over distant struggles. For many, the challenges of putting food on the table, finding work, or securing an education left little room for activism or protest. Sympathy remains, but the will to act has faded. People still feel for Palestine, but the sense of urgency and collective responsibility has been replaced by resignation and helplessness. The old "we" that included Palestinians has splintered into a collection of me-first identities. Each country now defines its own interests, often at the expense of regional unity. This shift in identity is the first key to understanding the silence. The bonds that once tied the Arab world together have loosened, replaced by a patchwork of national priorities. before we talk about government crackdowns, we have to see how the very idea of unity has changed. The collective dream has faded, replaced by a focus on individual survival and national pride. The fire of pan-Arabism is now just embers, glowing faintly in memory, but no longer lighting the way forward. Even if people wanted to protest, most Arab states have made it nearly impossible. The public spaces that once echoed with chants and demands for change are now eerily silent, watched over by ever-present security forces. The sense of possibility that once filled these squares has been replaced by a heavy, enforced quiet. After the Arab Spring, regimes cracked down hard. Organizing is now dangerous. Any attempt to gather, even for peaceful protest, is met with overwhelming force. The message is clear. Dissent will not be tolerated, and the price for speaking out is higher than ever. The Muslim Brotherhood, once a major force for Palestinian solidarity, was crushed. Its leaders were jailed, its supporters scattered, and its networks dismantled. The fate of the Brotherhood sent a chilling warning to all other groups. No one is safe from the state's reach. Laws criminalize dissent. Activists, journalists, even ordinary citizens risk arrest for speaking out. The boundaries of what is acceptable speech are constantly shifting, making it impossible to know when a line will be crossed. Surveillance is everywhere, online and offline. Fear is suffocating. Every phone call, every message, every post is potentially monitored. The sense of being watched is constant, and it shapes how people think, speak, and even dream. People self-censor, avoid politics, and keep their heads down. Conversations that once happened openly now take place in whispers, if at all. The fear of being reported, even by a neighbor or colleague, is real. Without organizations to channel anger, frustration stays private. People bottle up their outrage, their grief, and their hope for change. The energy that once fueled mass movements now simmers quietly behind closed doors. Governments have conflated solidarity with insurrection. Protest for Palestine is seen as a threat to the regime. Even humanitarian gestures are viewed with suspicion, as if any sign of unity could spark unrest. Digital surveillance amplifies the fear. Even a like on social media can be risky. Online spaces, once a refuge for free expression, have become another arena of risk and anxiety. The result, public silence, isn't apathy, it's survival. People have learned that to stay safe, they must remain invisible, unheard, and unnoticed. The streets are quiet not because people don't care, but because the cost of caring is too high. The passion for justice and solidarity still exists, but it is forced underground. The state has made sure that solidarity is a private emotion, not a public movement. Acts of support are hidden, shared only with trusted friends and family, far from the eyes of the authorities. The silence is the quiet of a hostage situation, not an empty room. It is the silence of people who are waiting, hoping, and watching for a moment when it might be safe to speak out again. Beyond fear and identity, economics drives the silence. For elites, wealth and power depend on ties to the West. Disrupting that for Palestine is unthinkable. Major projects, NEOM, the World Cup, require global investment and stability. Taking a hard stance on Palestine risks sanctions, lost business, and instability. For ordinary people, the focus is survival jobs, inflation, daily life. Governments offer a deal, economic opportunity in exchange for political quiet. Consumerism replaces activism. Why risk your future for a distant cause? The Abraham Accords show how economic interests now outweigh old alliances. Business lobbies push for stability and good relations with Israel. Even in struggling economies, people are too busy making ends meet to protest. The Palestinian cause, once central, is now a political and economic liability. It's not about lacking morals. It's about economic anxieties drowning out everything else. In this environment, Palestine slips further down the list of priorities. The final piece of the puzzle, relentless Western and especially US pressure. This influence is not just a background force, it's the engine driving much of the region's political reality. For decades, the United States has positioned itself as the indispensable power broker in the Middle East. shaping outcomes both behind closed doors and in the public eye. Arab states rely heavily on American military aid, advanced weaponry, and the promise of protection. US bases dot the region, and American security guarantees are woven into the very fabric of many Arab governments' survival strategies. The US holds enormous leverage. When Washington says de-escalate, leaders listen. The threat of losing American support is enough to make even the most defiant governments think twice before taking bold action. Any strong move against Israel risks not just military aid, but also crucial loans, diplomatic backing, and even the stability of entire regimes. Leaders know that crossing Washington can have immediate, tangible consequences. The US rewards cooperation, F-35 fighter jets for the UAE, diplomatic wins for Morocco, sanctions relief for Sudan. These incentives are powerful, shaping the choices of governments across the region. The message is clear: play ball and you'll be rewarded, resist and you'll face consequences. It's a high-stakes game of chess, with Washington always several moves ahead. European powers reinforce this pressure, adding another layer of caution. The combined weight of Western influence makes it nearly impossible for Arab leaders to chart an independent course. Leaders often use Western pressure as a convenient excuse. We'd do more for Palestine, but our hands are tied. This narrative helps them justify inaction to their own people. This external pressure also validates security crackdowns and prioritizing economic deals over political risks. It becomes a shield for unpopular decisions. The result? Foreign policy is effectively outsourced to Washington, with Israel's interests often at the center of every calculation. Arab states have become junior partners in a US-designed security system, their autonomy traded for promises of stability and support. There's simply no room for a truly independent pro-Palestinian policy. Any attempt to break the mold is met with swift resistance. Any attempt to break free is seen as rebellion against the entire order, not just a single policy disagreement. Trapped by weapons, money, and promises, Arab leaders often choose silence, knowing the risks of speaking out. This is the strongest bar on the cage, the invisible but unbreakable grip of Western power. So what does all this mean? The silence is a product of fractured identity, fear, economic anxiety, and Western pressure. It's not apathy, it's a calculated, coerced quiet. But this isn't the end of the story. Anger and sympathy for Palestine still exist just beneath the surface. The system is fragile. History shows that pressure can build and erupt unexpectedly. A new generation might find ways to break the silence. For now, the quiet is deafening, but it may not last forever.